Welcome back, everyone, to Ray Hall Talking College Ball. I am your host, Ray Hall, and we are here to talk some college ball. It is the Week 13 instant reaction. Right now, I am currently watching the BYU-Cincinnati game. It is about to go final. BYU 26, Cincinnati 14. Last second touchdown by BYU, possibly to show the committee that it wasn't as close as it really turned out to be. But we'll break this game down once it finally goes final. There's some other games I want to get to first, kind of starting chronologically order as I always do. We're going to go with Missouri at Oklahoma. Missouri 6, Oklahoma 17. Sooners get another win, another ranked win. I doubt Missouri will be ranked next week by the AP or the CFB. If they are, then if you like to call out SEC bias and collusion, I will fully support you in that stance. But I kind of had a revelation in this game when I was watching it. So Missouri had the 3-0 lead, and Oklahoma's offense was not getting anything going. Really, Missouri's offense wasn't either. It was just slightly less incompetent at first. And I was kind of thinking, I was like, wow. I tweeted this out. This is not the revelation I had. But I tweeted this out. I was like, if Oklahoma does not make the college football playoff, it's going to be a damn shame. Because that defense is smothering. It's lethal. It can just take over games. That offense, though, there are some problems. Now, they did end up winning the game today. Scored 17 points. Believe the first one was a 95-yard. Maybe not that long. It was like an 80-yard touchdown, 85-yard touchdown. That was a slant taken to a house call. So those are hard to scheme up, but if you can rely on that as Oklahoma, then good for you. I personally wouldn't. And then the other one, I think it was a short field that Mateer ran in. So they haven't really been able to put together a long drive yet. And to that team's... how am I trying to say this? For Oklahoma, good for you. If you guys don't need to put together long drives, awesome. If you guys can rely on your defense, that's great. I think it's going to get challenging as you start playing tougher teams. Luckily, next week you play LSU, who just went down to the wire against Western Kentucky, so I'm not sure if that's one of those tougher teams I was talking about. But maybe they have one last bullet in the chamber and they're saving it for the Sooners. Who knows? But definitely in the first round of the playoffs, I think it was projected like Notre Dame traveling to Oklahoma. And if you think that offense is going to get it done, I'm not saying it's not going to, but damn, I wouldn't be confident in it. And Sooner fans, you could put on this fake facade of defense wins championships, our offense does enough, we play complementary. Shut the fuck up, all right? In all honesty, your offense looks like shit, and your defense is carrying you. But it's working. So I wouldn't complain either. I would throw out all the fake nuanced sayings of complementary football, our offense only does enough because our defense is what's dominant. Whatever you need to say, cool, say it. But deep down, Oklahoma fans, you are scared. If a game gets over 24 points, if a game gets over 17 points and your defense doesn't have a touchdown, are you confident? Sure as hell not. But the revelation I had was Oklahoma and Missouri are the same team, except for two major, kind of minor, kind of major things. Both have just terrifying fronts on the defensive side of the ball. Secondary isn't great. Oklahoma's is a little bit more opportunistic with interceptions and turnovers. At least they have been lately. Missouri's doesn't have that same type of ability back there. But the two main reasons or differences between Missouri and Oklahoma is one, the kicker. I should have written this down. I don't have it written down. Oklahoma's kicker, he's a stud. He's just banging in 50-yarders like it's his fucking day job. Like it doesn't matter. Missouri has had a terrible year, not only in special teams, but specifically the kicking front. I mean, guys missing 30-yard chip shots. I think they're the third string kicker. But another key difference between these teams is red zone efficiency. I think Oklahoma's the best offense when they get into the red zone in all of college football. In Missouri, you saw it today. You didn't see as much in the Bama game. I don't know when their losses. The A&M game you don't even count because that was a bloodbath. But you saw it in the Vandy game. So today in the Vandy game, they would get down to these goal-to-go situations, and they just weren't able to finish the drive, come away with 7 instead of 3. And some of those times, they wouldn't come away with 3 because their kicking game is that bad. But in all honesty, those teams are very similar, almost identical. Especially with Bo Prabula back there. Quarterback's not great. He's an athlete. He can hit the open guy, and he can keep plays alive. But their offense isn't going to wow you. They rely on their defense to keep them in games until the other team makes mistakes. Oklahoma's just been better at taking advantage of those mistakes. So, but hey, Oklahoma, one more game to go. Luckily, you don't have to worry about a scenario where if you get into the conference championship game and you lose out of your third loss, whatever. No, you beat LSU in your home stadium. You get them at home. You beat LSU in your home stadium, then you're good to go. You're in the college football playoff. After a disastrous last year, complete 180 turned around, you're in the college football playoff. I'm not sure how far you'll get, because like I was saying, that offense is a problem. But hey, you made it. So, good on you. All right, next game we're going to talk about is the USC at Oregon game. Probably the second, maybe the first, no, definitely the first biggest game of the day. I would say Missouri at Oklahoma second. And this is where I'll jump around a little bit on the schedule. But USC at Oregon, USC 27, Oregon 42. The real key to this game is USC could not run the ball. Oregon could run the ball. USC's offense became very one-dimensional. Oregon's offense wasn't one-dimensional, and they were able to incorporate probably the best athlete in college football. It's probably an overreaction when I say that. But Kenyon Sadiq, I mean, holy shit, dude. Tree trunks for legs, just boulder shoulders, running 4.40. He's an absolute freak out there. I cannot wait to see what he does in the NFL because he's kind of like that perfect playmaking tight end in the NFL. But we're talking about Saturday. We don't care about the Sunday league here. Jaden Maeva made some mistakes. He also kept him in the game. That second interception he threw, he was on the fourth down. I'm okay with it. Didn't look like Lemon ran the route deep enough anyways. But still, I saw what Lincoln Riley was doing there. They just got the turnover coming out of half. They're kind of in no man's land. You can't kick it. Your defense really hasn't been able to stop their offense. So why try and pin them deep when it doesn't really matter? You're just kind of prolonging the inevitable at that point. You go for it, you don't get it. Whatever. Throw a pick. Cool. The USC's offense was really just like, okay, where's Mekhi Lemon? Where's Kobe Lane? If they're one-on-one or they're in some type of advantageous matchup, I'm going to throw the ball to them. They just could not run the ball. Oregon, on the other hand, helped Dante Moore out. Didn't make him. At first, they were kind of trying to, I guess, like strong-arm him into putting his footprint on the game. But when they started relying on the run, Winnington, I mean, he was just 5 yards a pop, 6 yards a pop. Like USC had no answer for it. The game felt closer, and also it felt like a bigger blowout. It was a weird game in the sense of that. Where it was a 15-point final score, and there was times where I was like, whew, USC, I mean, one-score game. They get the ball back here, watch out. But then also I was really never worried about it because I'm like, USC can't stop Oregon, especially their run game. So as soon as it got to a situation where Oregon's like, okay, we can just Dante Moore can turn around, hand the rock off, run this clock out, I was not worried about how that game was going to finish for them. Oregon, congratulations, you got your first ranked win of the season. I say that jokingly, kind of. Obviously, you had the Penn State win earlier in the year, but in the committee's eyes, that doesn't count as a ranked win. It still counts as a good win. Penn State's going to go bowling this year, I think, or they have a chance to go bowling if they win out next week after just dismantling Nebraska today. But back to this game. Dan Lanning, of course, had to take a shot at the SEC today, saying, hey, we didn't play Chattanooga State today. We came here to play. We came here to compete. Some people are saying, hey, Dan Lanning, you played Montana State, an FCS team earlier in the year. But they didn't play him this week, so he can say it this week. I'm telling you guys, you Big Ten fans, you better got your jokes in this week. Because next year, when the SEC has 9 conference games and that Power 4 opponent, you think the strength of schedule and all that talk is bad coming from down south? It's going to be twice as bad next year. It's going to be unbearably bad. They're going to be talking about 4 loss teams should have a chance to get in over our 2-loss team because of how strong that schedule is. You're going to be like, no, they're not that crazy. No, I'm telling you, they're going to start talking about it. Trust me, I have some Tennessee fans in my family. They're going to start talking. I know them. That's how they're going to react. That's how they're going to talk about it. So just be careful of that. But Oregon punched its ticket today to the college football playoff, while USC punched its ticket to another disappointing year. I don't know. If you finish up 9-3 this year with your losses being to Oregon, Notre Dame, and God, who's the other loss to? Another Big Ten team. Illinois. The Illinois loss hurts, especially after them losing to Wisconsin today. But if you go undefeated at home, hey, that's something you can hang your hat on. And plus, they have the number 1 recruiting class as of now for 2026. So, or either 2026 or 2027. One of the two. But it seems like Lincoln Riley's there was, hey, we're going to try and do it my way when he first got there. Didn't work out. All right, hey, we're going to try and do it my way / the Big Ten way. And it's kind of starting to work out. Like, that team's definitely not one of the more physical teams in the Big Ten, but it's not it's not sharp and soft, Like, they have some shit to them in the trenches and on their defense. So I think it's an improved job. You would have loved to see this from the Trojans and Lincoln Riley 2 years ago. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. So for USC, this is a good step forward. Obviously, you would have loved to win this game and have a chance to beat UCLA to make the college football playoff, but that's just not how it's going to work out. And I say Oregon punches their ticket today, and I'm not really sure they did 100%, but a lot would have to happen for them not to make it. Because if they lose to Washington, they're a 10-2 team, and then all the current 2-loss teams win, it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. Because that's going to be like 8 2-loss teams that have big-time wins, plus a BYU who would be a 1-loss team before the conference championship. And then if BYU wins the conference championship and puts Texas Tech as a 2-loss team after they're the number 5 team in the country, it could get dicey there. It could get dicey for a lot of teams. But hey, Oregon only has 1 loss right now, so I'm going to worry about that. I can't say it enough. Kenyon Sadiq is a freak. Oregon defensive backs trying to get picked on there. They fought back hard, though. It was a tough passing attack. And it was a one-dimensional offense that was going to throw the ball a shit ton. So only giving up 27 points, and the way you did it, I think you can live with that. Your defense showed up where it needed to. Just making them completely one-dimensional. The Trojan offense one-dimensional. Hats off to the Oregon defense. I am a little curious to see how Dante Moore is going to do in those big-time moments, but a lot of people were saying that about Will Howard last year at this point, and he showed up when it mattered most on that 4th down and got it. So I wouldn't be too worried if you're a Oregon fan. You're probably not at all. But all right, moving to the next game. Pitt at Georgia Tech, 42-28 is final. Georgia Tech is, I believe, eliminated from ACC contention, and or definitely limited from college football playoff contention if that's the case. Pitt came out, it was 28-0 at halftime. It was not looking good. Actually, I think Georgia Tech came back 28-14 was the final or the halftime score. Each team scoring 2 more touchdowns, making it 42-28 for the final. For a second there, Georgia Tech was looking live. It was 35-42, and it was like, all right, it's getting a little scary there. It was not 35-42, it was 28-35, excuse me. But then Pitt hit a home run on the run game after Narduzzi was cussing out his offense coordinators, asking why we are not running the ball. But then also gave the go-ahead for probably one of the worst fake punt attempts I've ever seen. I mean, when you have the long snapper angled directly to the up back, and then he's the one that flashes his hands, that's not going to work. Honestly, though, if you look back at it, if he didn't trip up, he might have gotten that corner. Would have been close. But still, one of the worst designed fake punts I've seen in a while. Haynes King tried to be Superman. A lot of people were saying he was doing the Marcel Reed act in the first half, where he dug himself a hole just to get out of it, to up his Heisman odds. I think it's just asking that guy to play at such a high level, because that Georgia Tech defense is atrocious, and relying on Haynes King so much to keep him in games and win games for them single-handedly, it finally just took its toll on him. There's probably some Penn State fans out there saying, well, the reason why Georgia Tech lost this week is because Brent Key's focused on the Penn State job. I don't think that's the case. Could be wrong, but I don't think that's the case. We'll see. Pitt now, I think they have a meeting with Miami. Both of them are still playing for, I believe, the ACC championship, and then Miami's playing for the at-large bid. Pitt, to get the ACC championship, would need either an SMU loss or a Virginia loss, and a win over Miami. Miami would probably, I'm not even sure if they can get the ACC championship at this point. They probably can. They would need an SMU loss and a Virginia loss and just create a bunch of 2-loss, 6-2 ACC teams, and then they can get in. That's probably the easiest path for them today, because their counterpart, as we like to call them, Notre Dame, who they had a head-to-head against, just completely pantsed Syracuse, 7-70. Miami had a good win, 34-17. Some style points at the end, definitely. But it's not looking like Notre Dame is letting that gap close, or at least letting it close without a fight. But hey, Pitt, your season's in front of you. I guess Coach Narduzzi was correct when he said last week this Notre Dame game does not matter one bit. Maybe he was doing an install and prep for Georgia Tech last week in a 2-week little prep for him. Because the way they jumped on him at first, holy shit. I mean, Georgia Tech did not have an answer. They seemed discombobulated on offense. They finally got their bearings under them, beat it a game. But still, 2-touchdown win over Georgia Tech at their place. That's an impressive win for the Pitt Panthers. And if you can't win next week, or if you do win and SMU or Virginia doesn't lose, then your number one priority then is making sure Mitch Henschel, I think I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name, he stays in Pittsburgh. He doesn't go anywhere else. Because there's going to be some callers for him. And by some, I mean a lot. And they're going to be offering a lot more money than the Pitt program probably has. So hopefully I'm not sure where he's from. Hopefully he's from Pittsburgh and wanted to play for the Panthers his whole entire life. And you have that going for you. Because some of these schools are going to be throwing around $4 or $5 million for him next year. I'm not sure if you guys can compete with that. So, all right, next game we're talking about is Wazoo at JMU. Wazoo obviously being Washington State for the under 20 crowd here who isn't familiar with that nickname. But JMU escapes in Bridgeport Stadium 24-20 over the Cougars. Wasn't looking good there for the Dukes. I am from that area, so I'm well aware of James Madison, the program, and then also have a bunch of friends that are alumni. And there's definitely some tight buttholes there in the fourth quarter before they broke off that big run. Especially because in the past, if you look at it, the past 2 years, I think JMU really has had it in front of them, and they would lose a game and lose their chances at, in the past, the Sun Belt, but this year, specifically, college football playoff, which ESPN still keeps up putting fake news that they have a 48% chance of making the playoff. JMU wins out and Tulane wins out. Tulane is going to be the Group of 5 representative. If JMU wins out and North Texas wins out, JMU will not be the Group of 5 representative either. It'll still be North Texas. The scenario I was looking at today, and it'd be a weird one. It'd probably require Tulane or North Texas to lose. And if you only pick one of them, you would prefer Tulane, because I think North Texas has the head-to-head over Navy. But what happens if, hear me out on this, and I haven't looked at when the official rankings come out, so I could be completely blowing shit out of my ass right now. But what happens if Navy wins the American and they're the highest-ranked G5 champion, but then they go and play the Navy-Army game, Army-Navy game, and Army beats Navy? I think at that point the field's already set, so it wouldn't affect it. But I was like, oh, that'd be a crazy scenario where Army could ruin Navy's postseason by beating them in a game that matters more than a lot of other games, but doesn't matter for any of those standings. But unfortunately, if you're a Dukes fan, you can do all you can, win out, get all the propaganda out there. But if North Texas or Tulane don't lose any more games and they win out, I believe you'll be watching from home. Obviously, if Tulane does, you will, because they're already ranked ahead of you. But for JMU and North Texas, that head-to-head gets a little tight. Personally, I have North Texas, by a lot of metrics, ranked higher than Tulane. So to see Tulane ranked is, I don't want to say troubling for JMU fans, but troubling for JMU fans. Because I would assume North Texas probably in that 25 to 30-ish range, and JMU's probably around the 35 to 40 range. So hopefully, though, if you're a Dukes fan, they can figure it out. Someone can come to their senses. Stop hating, the Constitution. The guy that our school's named after literally wrote it, Show some respect for this goddamn country. All right, next game we're talking about is Duke at UNC. Duke pulls ahead 32-25 in the fourth, giving Bill Belichick a inaugural season where he is bowl ineligible. They have 7 losses now, won't be able to make it to a bowl game. Take a little sip here. Not sponsored, but I love the Fansville commercials. Huge, massive balls by Manny Diaz there, calling that fake field goal. I mean, you have the field goal, it's a long one to take the lead. Then you have your holder pitch it to the kicker. I felt bad for the guy that he couldn't score the touchdown, because that would have been just a great moment for him. But still, hats off to him, getting it down to the 1. It's honestly a great thing they went for 2 also, because I'm pretty sure the line was 6.5. So that means Duke covered. So that's another huge win. Duke was a great team because they covered and won. So hats off to them. UNC, I mean, they've been playing a lot better since that opening game against TCU. Not sure if they figured something out or if TCU just had their number that night. But they put on some impressive performances. And I say that kind of sparingly because if you look at it, one of their bigger wins is against Syracuse, who lost by 63 points today. But anyways, Duke, just one of those teams that really just didn't live up to expectations. They're a very unlucky team if you look at the luck meter. Kind of a snake-bitten year. What I will say, though, Darian Mensah was worth every penny. And you're going to have a good returning cast back next year. So that's promising to build off of. Not going to be in a New Year's Six Bowl. Can't play in the ACC Championship. Probably match up, though, against a Power 2 team in a bowl game and win that and get some more momentum going into the offseason. But Duke can really turn out to be a place that people will want to transfer to and play. So I would look out for them in the ACC, especially with UNC struggling, Clemson struggling, Wake not struggling nearly as much. Did a great job this year. But they can kind of run the Carolinas, which would be not good for anyone in Chapel Hill. So kind of a double-faceted win. Win the game today, and then also you can set your program up better for the future. All right, next game we're covering Nebraska at Penn State. I don't have the final written down. Pretty sure it's 37-10. Could be wrong on that. Might have been 37-17. I don't think Nebraska scored that last touchdown. I think it was 37-10. I had Nebraska plus 7.5. I think I'm at plus 8.5. And I even took them again today at plus 9.5. Hand up, I was wrong. If you're just listening, not watching, I literally put my hand up to admit I was wrong there. I think it was definitely a situation where not really a some things, but kind of a some things game in a sense. Like the records that were broken today that were set by Saquon Barkley, by Katron Allen, that broke them, and kind of the way that the team rallied behind Coach Smith after his first win as a interim head coach. And also it was on NBC. This is just a theory of mine, and I could be completely wrong. But any game that's on NBC seems a lot more like old-fashioned / dramatic as well. Like if there's a storyline, NBC does a really good job of highlighting that storyline and making it like a really big deal, making random viewers care about it. So hats off to NBC about that. But NBC's another thing. NBC is such an old man, like football channel in the sense where like they don't have these crazy graphics. They don't do too much with like these pictures they put on the screen. They keep it very bare bones. They don't need like a 65-year-old, 7-year-old Vietnam vet like stroking out, because they're throwing off graphics on there. So they keep it, pretty plain and simple, pretty vanilla. Penn State has a chance to, if they win next week, I'm not sure who they play. They're one of those weird schools that has like 4 rivals but no real big-time rival. So they win next week, though, they can be bowl eligible. And Penn State fans will be then dancing on people's graves, saying even in our down years when we fire our coach, we're still bowl eligible. That's just the standard up here in Happy Valley. Well, the problem with that is the same problem that Penn State's been having. The teams you're comparing yourself to, in their down years, they still are playing for 10 wins. So, but anyways, hats off to Penn State. Another thing I'll say about Penn State specifically, I don't really have much to break down in this game. Katron Allen's great. Thought he got injured there before he broke the all-time leading rusher record for Penn State, but he was able to come back in, get a few more yards, I think another touchdown also, to really put the icing on the cake there. But the people that go to Penn State or are connected to Penn State have such a connection and care about that school and program. And that's why they get the comparisons to a cult. They call it cult-like because of how much people care about this program once they're removed from it. Because in their minds, they're never fully removed. Like it's almost like a gang. Like it's blood in, blood out. Like we bleed blue. Nittany Lion blue here. But like they don't leave that behind them. So good for you, Penn State. Maybe that's why you're trying to poach A&M's coach, because if you can coach that cult, you can definitely coach our cult. But really, all jokes aside, a solid fan base. And I do wish them well. I hope they kind of get back on track here. I still don't want them to win a national championship because that'd be the worst season than off-season of my entire life. But I do want them to kind of go back to that lovable loser of 10-2, can always get to the top and never really fully reach it. because that's just hilarious to laugh at. You kind of need those programs in schools. Like Clemson ruined it, winning those national championships in the late teens, 20 teens. They kind of ruined the Clemson and all that. So Penn State took it over for them. And it's not fun when that school just sucks. You want them to be good enough where it hurts their fan base when they lose. All right, that's enough bad talk about Penn State. Next game we're talking about, kind of hinted at it already, Syracuse at Notre Dame, 7-70. It was 21-0 before Notre Dame took an offensive snap. I don't have the full stat line in front of me. Jeremiah Love, 8 rushes, 170-plus yards, 4 touchdowns. Basically cementing himself in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Don't think he's going to win it. You need some really bad rivalry weekend and conference championship weekend performances from the 3 quarterbacks ahead of him. But he should definitely get an invite. And to the Notre Dame fans that are under the fantasy of, hey, Jeremiah Love, he has another year of eligibility left. Stop it. He's going to be a top 15 pick. He is not coming back. Even if they go all the way to championship and he has some terrible moment where he fumbles on the 1-yard line when they're about to win the game, he's not going to come back to be like, I have unfinished business here. I need to right my legacy. No, he's going to the NFL. All right. Syracuse, just completely off the track there. Completely off the rails. Great first year with Fran Brown, Kyle McCord. Kind of promising at first with Steve and Jelly. Then he gets hurt. Then it just goes all downhill. You guys lost to UNC. That is as bad as a loss it can get if you look at everything there. It was a weeknight game, too. I think it was a Friday night game. Oh. Losing to a bad team on a Friday night as a college program, brutal. Notre Dame, though, definitely seemed like they had a couple narratives they wanted to put to rest. One about Jeremiah Love being a Heisman contender. And we're like, yep, he's going to be bona fide Heisman contender. He had to say it himself. Only 8 carries, 170-plus yards, 4 touchdowns. Insane stat line. But then also, unfortunately for Syracuse, they had to take the brunt of it. But Notre Dame was like, you know what? You guys aren't saying that we're an improved team. You guys saying that we don't deserve our ranking. Okay. I'm not sure if we can change it by how much we win in this game, but we're sure as hell try. They this point differential and the actual way this game played out, I only watched the first quarter. I turned it off and I kept seeing highlights of Jeremiah Love scoring. But this was worse than Alabama versus Eastern Illinois, worse than Georgia versus Charlotte, worse than Texas A&M versus Sanford. They completely deep-hand Syracuse. Just an embarrassing loss for that program. Fran Brown said he was humbled in his post-game interview. You think, dude? Hell yeah, I'm humbled. After that, holy shit. You better be humbled. All right, moving forward. Kentucky at Vanderbilt. Kentucky 17, Vanderbilt 45. This is one of the, at least 2, because I know Arch had the other, but 6-touchdown performance is today by a SEC quarterback. I don't think any other SEC quarterback had 6 touchdowns. Diego Pavia trying like hell to get to New York. Trying like hell to show the committee that they deserve to be at least looked at for the college football playoff. And they will be. They're giving themselves a chance. They have a matchup next week against Tennessee. Tennessee will still be a ranked team, so they can add to their resume there. They'll probably need some external help, but still. They're doing what they can at this point. Kentucky fans, it's basketball season now. You're probably not even listening to any college football content at this point, so won't spend too much time trying to make you feel good. It was funny, though, for the past 2 weeks, people thought Mark Stoops, had some momentum. And I'm not saying he doesn't, but your team still fucking sucks, dude. You just need to spend a little bit more change on the gridiron compared to the hardwood. But they probably don't care. I think they would rather have. I wonder how many. Actually, you know what? I don't know. If you ask a Kentucky fan, hey, would you rather have a basketball championship or a national or a college football championship? I think since they've already won so many in basketball, I think they would take the football one because it'd be like, hell yeah, add something to our trophy case that we haven't done before. But I think they all care about basketball more. So, like I said, it's basketball season for them. Vanderbilt, it's almost tax season, so if you guys don't make the college football playoff, start working on that. April 14th or April 15th is just around the corner. Start getting those early files in. Don't get swamped down in the springtime when baseball is playing and your team's probably making a tournament run again. So, no, seriously, hats off to Vanderbilt. They just had a decommit, 3-star quarterback. His name is escaping me right now. And he didn't instantly recommit somewhere else. So typically in the college football world, if you have a decommit at a position, he's not instantly recommitting. He's not like a highly touted recruit that's going on visits the following week. Take a sip real quick. Then what that means is either you have a coaching change that he knows about, which doesn't seem like it's the case because there were no other decommits, or you have a bigger fish coming into the program. Who's that bigger fish? Well, it could possibly be one Jared Curtis, who was only taking a trip to Vanderbilt as a courtesy because they were recruiting his teammate, and he thought it'd be a cool experience to go see there and just go with his teammate. Could be someone else. But right now, there's a lot of buzz around it being Jared Curtis, 5-star quarterback commit. And if Vanderbilt landed that, if you thought Vanderbilt fans were annoying with Diego Pavia at quarterback, wait till they have a 5-star commit in the offseason, and it's going to get very, very annoying. And plus, Vanderbilt's not your typical SEC school. You can't really get in arguments with their fans and just run laps around them. Their fans are smart because they all went to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt doesn't have any just random fans from Eastern Tennessee that are like, yeah, well, I like college football, so I picked Vanderbilt. No, it's all alum there. They're all freaking making high 6 figures, well off, living in the suburbs of Nashville in a $2 million freaking penthouse, not a penthouse, probably a modern ranch with 2 acres. Own a law firm or something like that, and their own accounting firm. And they're smart and they're geniuses, so they can run laps around you in arguments. Be careful going out there and arguing with Vanderbilt fans on Twitter. It's not your typical, Billy Bob from Huntsville talking about the Tide. All right, these guys are smart. All right, last game we'll cover. Well, second to last game because I don't have this one written down. That one I'm talking about is the BYU versus Cincinnati game. But this game we're talking about is Michigan at Maryland. Michigan pulled away. It was a little bit closer at halftime. I think it was a 10-point game at halftime, maybe 17-point game at halftime. So it wasn't that close. But Michigan wins 45-20. Setting up a really, really, really important rivalry game with Ohio State. Not that it's not always important. Even last year when Michigan was 6-5 going into that game, it was still very important. But this year specifically, because the way it's set up is if Michigan beats Ohio State, I replied to Ari Wasserman, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. If it's not, I'm sorry. But he's with On3. He does the Andy and Ari show with Andy Staples. He said if Michigan beats Ohio State, they're in the college football playoff. Without a doubt. I said, well, hold on. Do I think they should be in? Do I think they'll get in? Yes. Without a doubt, though, that's a kind of outrageous statement to say. Michigan, I think they're at 18. We'll probably move down to 17 at least. They'll bump up in front of USC now that they have 3 losses. They don't have to worry about the head-to-head anymore. Probably down to 16 because Georgia Tech just lost. But like I was saying, there's a situation where you can have 10 to 12 2-loss Power 2 teams. And it could get really squirrely about who's going to be in. And Michigan will have on their resume, yep, they have the best win in college football. But then they also don't have that great of a second win. And their losses are pretty solid in a sense. I mean, Oklahoma would be a playoff team, so Oklahoma would have the head-to-head over them if they honor that. We don't know after looking at Miami, Notre Dame for the past couple weeks. And then another loss to USC. But you can say it was on the road, wasn't our A game. You can tell something was off. USC ran the ball on us. That would never happen. It had to just be a throwaway game. You can't count that. I don't think, unless you're a Big Ten fan / Michigan hater, I don't think you understand how much the media loves Michigan. The media has an infatuation with Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State, but I think Ohio State's is a little bit more warranted. They've won national championships, plural, and recently, so I get that one. But those three schools specifically, they love them. The media loves them. So it'd be very hard to leave out a 10-2 Michigan with a win over number 1 Ohio State. But I don't think it's a complete shoo-in. And I think I've said it in the past. Oh, if Michigan does this, they're getting in. Maybe I should have prefaced that more with saying they are more likely than not getting in. There's probably some other stuff that needs to happen. It'd be crazy. It'd be more crazy if they didn't get in than them getting in that situation. But I don't think it's like a lock that if they win this game, they're in. But that kind of brings me to our final game, BYU at Cincinnati. BYU scoring a late touchdown, giving themselves some style points. I don't think it was intentional. The play just kind of broke and they ran it in. He could have took a knee at the 1-yard line and let the clock run out, but regardless, it made it a 2-score game. So with under a minute left, so I don't think it was putting the game at much risk by doing that. They finished the game 26-10 26-14 against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's kicking game just really, really broke them today. And also, if you look at the stats, any game that Brendan Sorsby throws an interception in or has a turnover in, Cincinnati has lost. So, he had an interception today, and they lost. It's simple as that. That's game breakdown. If you're hoping for something like very specific, I don't have it for you. BYU's offense kind of sputtered today. They were able to run the ball when they needed to, but it wasn't like this dominant, like, hey, 6 yards, 7 yards. Barrett Bachmeier was getting a little banged up. So if you're a BYU Cougars fan, that's something to be worried about, is all the hits that he's been taking this year. He's built like a fucking brick shit house. But still, these hits on a younger guy, they add up. But BYU now, they have to play UCF next week, where they'll probably be 10-point favorites at home. And that will set up the rematch that they've been waiting for against Texas Tech in the Big 12 Championship. In Dallas, where John Party was announced today that John Party is the halftime show. Huge John Party fan here. So I will definitely be tuning in for the halftime show. And the game, obviously. But also specifically the halftime show. I wonder what his set's going to be like. I'm a little bit worried for BYU fans because I see a scenario playing out and they're going to be just so angry with it. That scenario is BYU finishes the year 11-1. Alabama finishes the year 10-2. BYU goes to their conference championship and loses. Committee uses it as a reason to keep them out of the college football playoff. Alabama goes to their conference championship and loses, but they don't get punished. BYU fans in that scenario, I think, could rightfully be mad. The committee would probably push back and be like, hey, we didn't have BYU in the playoff to begin with. Where they're at is where they felt like, or where they're currently ranked. They didn't move up or down based off of the outcome of the game. But you're not going to be able to convince them of that. So if that happens, I feel for you BYU fans. If that happens, that exact scenario happens, BYU fans, I will only drink caffeine-free, zero sugar Dr. Pepper for a week. Whenever I want to have a regular Dr. Pepper, I'll make sure it's a caffeine-free one. to show my support for you guys. But that moves on to the last little thing we're going to do tonight, the elimination/playoff games of Rivalry Weekend. So I touched on this one first because this is one of the crazier games of today. But Utah at Kansas, after Utah almost just had their season go down the drain against Kansas State. I think the lead was 10 at halftime, maybe 13. Ended up winning, was it 54 to 49, 50, something like that. Won by 4. I think it was 52 to 48. That's my final guess. 52 to 48. On a huge run by Devin Dampier. Still don't know if it's Devin or Devon, but I'm going to go with Devin for tonight. Devin Dampier. Pocket broke down when they ran a 2-minute drill, and he's able to escape. Looks just trying to pick up the first down. Ends up running about 50 yards to the 1-yard line, and they score 3 plays later. And then it's about 50 seconds left, 48 seconds left, I think, to be exact. Avery Johnson has the ball. Avery Johnson, ball in his hands, 48 seconds left, no timeouts. Needing a touchdown to win. Most dangerous man alive. Except he's not. He kind of did what Avery Johnson does in those big game scenarios and throws an interception. Kind of bittersweet if you're a Kansas State fan, because that was kind of how the Iowa State, Kansas State, and Dublin game ended this year. And it just wanted to make me... I'm going to get back to the elimination playoff game segment I'm doing here. I just want to go on a little side tangent road. It's late at night. Let me cook. Kansas State going with Avery Johnson last year. And I've said this before, so you might have heard this. Imagine if they didn't. Imagine if they were like, you know what? We're not ready to move on with Avery Johnson yet. We think he's still limited, still needs some growing. We're going to stick with Will Howard. Will, you're our guy going into this next year. Well, what does that mean? It means Will Howard doesn't go to Ohio State. Now, I'm not saying if Will Howard doesn't go to Ohio State, then he'll win the national championship. But you could say that. You very well could. But there were reports also that Julian Sain was pushing Will Howard there in camp to begin with. So maybe Julian Sain starts last year. What does that team look like last year with Julian Sain at quarterback? How does Ekbuka look? Does he put up... Do him and Jeremiah Smith both put up 2,000 yards? Probably not. But still, there's a world out there if you're a Michigan fan and you want to be mad at someone about Ohio State winning a championship, which you're probably not mad because you beat them that same year and you can hold that over them. But you can just get mad at Kansas State for picking Avery Johnson over Will Howard. Avery Johnson's kind of been the big disappointment. He's supposed to kind of be the savior for that program, and Chris Kleiman. Not that they really needed saving. They were still a solid program, 8-9 wins during his tenure. But he was supposed to be the guy that took him to the next level, and then he just hasn't really been that. I'm not sure who they have in reserves behind him, so it could be tough sledding for Kansas State. But they still beat Kansas this year, and Kansas has a chance to beat Utah in their rivalry game to knock Utah out of playoff contention. Getting back to our segment, full circle. Utah had a huge scare today. Big emotional game. Are they going to be able to go out and handle business at Kansas? I think they will. Jalen Daniels was kind of banged up today. I did a preemptive tweet saying, pour one out for Jalen Daniels. It's been awesome watching him play. One of the funnest, most electric college football players in the past 5 years when he was on the field. Unfortunately for him, injuries kept popping up. But he came back in the game. So we get to see him this week against Utah, which will be awesome. Next elimination playoff game is Texas A&M at Texas. Yes, Texas still technically is in playoff contention. Where are they ranked? 19th? I think even a little bit higher than that. They might have been higher than that. 17th? They might have been 17th. But they're going to jump Georgia Tech. They're going to jump USC. So they'll be probably around top 15 range. And then kind of the same scenario we had with not Miami, not Maryland, but Michigan if they beat Ohio State. If Texas beats Texas A&M, you start looking at their resume. Their only losses, I say only when there's three of them, their losses are to number 1 Ohio State, number 4 at the time, Georgia. Well, at the time, it was number 5, but number 4 currently right now, Georgia. And then they have like a pretty crappy Florida loss. But they also have one of the best, if not the best, ones in college football. Would be hard to keep them out because that's probably one of those Southern teams that I compared to Notre Dame and Michigan, where the media just loves them. You see that logo pop up, it is very, very hard to keep that team out. The emotions that logo puts onto people. You start thinking of Vince Young reaching for the pylon, running in against the Trojans in the Rose Bowl. Start thinking about Mac Brown, Colt McCoy, all these great guys that have come through that program. Go back to Ricky Williams. Go even further back to some of their other studs. There's a lot of emotions that those Longhorns put on to people. So Texas A&M can just take care of business and knock Texas completely out. Next one, probably the one people are talking about the most, is Alabama at Auburn. Alabama wins, they go to the SEC championship, and more likely than not, the college football playoff. If Alabama loses, they miss both. Next one is UCF at BYU. BYU obviously not in the playoff right now, so any loss would completely knock them out. But I think they actually clinched the Big 12 appearance tonight, but I'm not 100% sure. They probably didn't because there's a couple they'd make a couple 2-loss teams. Because I think Arizona State just finished up against Colorado probably about an hour ago at this point. So there's probably some weird tiebreakers that had to go through there. But make it easy, BYU beat UCF. And then talk about this game already, Miami at Pitt. Miami playing for the ACC championship, but more importantly, the at-large bid. And Pitt playing for the ACC championship appearance. I think it'd be really easy if Miami won and some other teams lost, at least SMU, or maybe at least Virginia, because I think SMU would have the head-to-head against them, so it would kind of make that point mute. But if Miami could just get into the ACC championship and win that would make things so much easier for people. Like, we wouldn't have to have like this bickering going on. But it's the ACC, and it won't be that easy. So, next game I already mentioned, Ohio State at Michigan. Not an elimination game for Ohio State. Pseudo playoff game in the sense of the caliber of team we're going to be playing for them. It's kind of their first big test since they played Texas week 1, so it'll be nice to see them against a more well-matched opponent. But Michigan, they have a chance to keep this streak going. This would be 6 in a row, 5 in a row, 6 in a row. And then also, more likely than not, punch their ticket to the college football playoff if they beat Ohio State at home in the big house. LSU at Oklahoma, I already mentioned that. Oklahoma needs to win this game. Oklahoma wins, they're in. LSU just came off a 13-10 victory against Western Kentucky. A lot of people are calling Western Kentucky the Alabama of Conference USA, so hold your head high, Tiger fans. I mean, I know you guys are probably more focused on Lane Kiffin, which another side rant I'm going to go with real quick. How embarrassing is it for the program of Louisiana State University to have to put out public news, link it to, I think it was Pete Nakos at League 2 at On 3, that they're putting together this Godfather offer for Lane Kiffin and expecting an answer by the end of this week, as in this upcoming week. Basically trying to, it's like their last-ditch effort of well, I don't think we're going to get him, so let's just put the pressure on him, letting the public know how much he's turning down and what he's turning down if he doesn't take this. I don't think it's going to work. However, it's just nightmare fuel in LSU right now. Same for Florida. Not as bad, I would say, because you don't have the governor getting into it. But it's honestly insane if you look at it. Out of those 3 major jobs in the SEC, LSU, Auburn, and Florida, Auburn's the most sane, stable one right now. You would never expect that. Those words should not be in the same sentence. Auburn, sane, and stable. They shouldn't exist together. But when you have Auburn, or when you have LSU and Florida acting fools, pretty easy to prop yourself up like that. All right, next game, Vanderbilt at Tennessee. Mentioned that as well. Tennessee is playing spoiler, or trying to play spoiler in this rivalry game. Probably the first Vanderbilt to Tennessee game that's had major implications on it ever, especially from the Vanderbilt side. But hats off to Vanderbilt. Hopefully they can get the win and make the committee make a decently tough decision and kind of keep building. Notre Dame at Stanford's the last one. After what Notre Dame just did to Syracuse, I don't expect them to have a letdown spot at Stanford. But maybe, they scored all of their points up for the regular season, and they don't have any to use against Stanford, who had an impressive win today. I think final was 31-10 against Cal. Andrew Luck's getting that program turned around. There's a lot of talk about Jeff Monken, the Army coach, going to Stanford. I think that'd be a great hire, great fit for both parties. He's kind of used to recruiting with one hand tied behind his back, so he'd be able to assimilate well to the Stanford way. But who knows? Maybe they keep Frank Wright. Remove that interim tag if they finish the year with wins over Cal and Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's in a boat race. And I put it on there because I had some other games on there, and I was like, you know what? We'll put this one in there. But anyways, that includes our Week 13 recap. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Please give it a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't. Like I said, my goal is to get to 25 subscribers on YouTube specifically, so I can start doing live videos instead of having to record, edit, then upload. It would be a lot nicer just to get the live instant reactions out there, as I like to call them. But we can't do that until I get to 25 subscribers. So please tell a friend. If you're dating someone, steal their phone, log on to it, hit the subscribe button. You can just mute the notifications. But give me to 25 so I can start doing live videos. Deeply appreciate it all. That is another episode of Ray Hall Talking College Ball. Please follow me on X at RayHall_CFB, and you'll have a great night.